You'll have to set it up on Twitter, I guess. On Twitter for that, do the hashtags too. John Deere strike, Striketober. We're up. Is the camera on both of us? All right. Hey there, Jordan, Status Coup. We are on the front lines of the STORMY worker revolt here in the United Corporations of America. I am going to wait just a little bit because YouTube takes its time to notify people when we're live. Oh, there goes the light column. But we've been in Iowa and Illinois. You could, yeah, no problem. You don't need to tiptoe. We've been in Iowa and Illinois for a few days now, covering various picket lines of the John Deere strike, which I believe is on day 11 today, I think. So we started out actually in Ottumwa, Iowa, which is in the southeastern part of the state, fairly close, I think, to Missouri. But unfortunately, our microphone battery died just as we were getting going, talking to workers striking here. So we came back. It has been on and off, kind of storming today. So we're inside a big green tent, a big army tent. Even though it's been raining, there's still workers out here picketing, John Deere workers, UAW workers out here striking, even on a rainy Sunday in Ottumwa. So that shows you the dedication. Yesterday, if you've been following, we were in Waterloo, Iowa, which is about 2.5 hours from here. There was a rally at the local UAW hall in Waterloo. By my count, there was at least 200 people there. So a huge turnout. Community was there, old, young, dogs. And from the rally, they went to picket lines there. Really, it's been really, really active. We've only been here a few days, but we've been to picket lines in Ottumwa, in Davenport, Iowa, in Waterloo, Iowa, in East Moline, Illinois. And it's really been invigorating, to tell you the truth, because, frankly, among workers, among the progressive movement, there's been a lot of doom and gloom, shall we say, over the last year since the last presidential election. So it's good to see workers outside of the political system taking action and demanding more and saying, I guess borrowing from Bernie, actually saying enough is enough. So we're back here. Smash the like button. This is a Sunday. I don't expect YouTube to be kind to us. So smash the like button, thumbs up, share this live streams, get it out to more people. Post on your social media that we are live so people will see it. So I'm here again with Chris Larson. You were a former president of the local UAW here, 74, local UAW, and you've been out really as one of the kind of unofficial leaders here in Ottumwa of this strike. So you and I were talking the other day, so I was hoping to go a little bit more in depth. So I want to start from the beginning. You served in the Army, so we can get into that. But kind of talk about why in the first place did you want to work for John Deere? You've been here for almost 20 years, I think.
Yeah, so, thank you for having me on, Jordan. I've been here for 19 years as of August. I came here, there's not a lot of employment opportunities in this community. They have a pork processing facility across the river. We have John Deere here where we manufacture hay equipment. And, a lot of retail businesses. And, story like a lot of many other people, I found a girl, got married, and had some kids, and I needed a way to support them.
And a lot of the media is in New York, D.C., L.A., but in between that, a lot of these small towns. I mean, Ottumwa is about a little over 24,000 people. A lot of these places, one of the biggest employers is a place like John Deere. So there's not a ton of other options. A lot of people, benefits, a union, retirement, pensions, decent wage, even though you got to work like a slave. But over the years, what previously might have been decent conditions, they've been taking and taking and taking. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It was, it started back in 1997 when they decided to offer a tiered agreement where it separated employees who were hired before October 1st, 1997, and those hired after. They threatened to close down a couple of facilities, Ottumwa being one of them. I think Ankeny was the other one. And, they kind of forced the hand of the membership, to vote. And so when we came in, I'm a post-97 employee. Our wages were smaller. We had a pension that was about a third of our predecessors. We had no post-retirement health care, different KIP factors in our incentive plan. And, over these last almost 25 years now, Jordan, we really haven't made any gains. And so now's the time. We're ready to stand up and fight back. The conditions are in our favor. And, we're here. As you can see, we're dug in, we're entrenched, and we're ready to set it out as long as it takes.
And just so you guys know, I mean, you might see us in it's kind of ghost lit, like we're in an army tent. If you're coming to this late, it's been on and off pouring outside. So fortunately, we're inside a tent talking, but there's still workers striking outside, even in really, really gloomy, muddy. It's pretty muddy on the ground. This army tent actually reminds me a little bit of when I was at Standing Rock, because the weather was not kind there either. So a lot of times I would go live or report inside a tent speaking with Native Americans, various people. But I kind of wanted to ask, because something that's always infuriated me when I'm on the road is we really live in an alternative reality. Like, what's actually happening is not depicted in the media. So in the media, aside from, of course, the financial crash over a decade ago, but overall, the media only depicts the economy and life based on the unemployment number, GDP, the stock market. So you basically always heard, I mean, even during COVID, like last couple months, the economy's roaring back. Jobs are roaring back. Whatever artificial numbers they're putting out there. Meanwhile, I'm at the Amazon warehouse seeing workers getting carted out on stretchers from passing out of heat. I talk to workers, whether it be John Deere, GM, maybe they have a job, but it's certainly not letting them live comfortably. I mean, it really has been an economic Hunger Games that's being depicted by corporate media that happens to take advertisements from companies like John Deere as the wealthiest country on earth, American dream, work hard. Can you kind of talk about the disconnect you felt in these conditions working at John Deere while you were getting less and less, but it's depicted much differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it all. Look, corporate media controls the narrative, and that's what's fed to people every day. And, to control workers, to keep this perpetuation of a system of legalized bribery, you have to divide people. And the simplest way to do that is, the way they do it now. And, whether you're wearing a red jersey or a blue jersey, the thing I always tell people is that, I love this Martin Luther King quote, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but, we all came in on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. And that's really the truth here in this community. Our kids go to the same school, we work at the same places, we visit the same restaurants, we go to the same beach, and again, media is very good at making us divided.
I want to talk a little bit more about John Deere specifically, because you see strikes happening all over the place. But John Deere has put out that average worker makes like $60,000 a year. John Deere has put out that I think they're saying per hour we pay 12 additional bucks for health care. And they're putting out a lot of stuff. It's not just John Deere. I mean, most of these corporations spend more money on PR than they do the workers. But they're putting out stuff that, if you're just reading the articles where these John Deere talking points are out there, it sounds like you guys are doing fairly well in terms of what average people make. But those numbers are not completely accurate, are they?
No, I don't feel they are. I think they're inflated. You touched on they claim that they pay $12 per employee per hour for health insurance. If you take that up, you just average it for an average worker for 40 hours over a year's time, you're looking at nearly $25,000 that they're claiming that they pay in premiums per employee. I beg to differ, and a lot of people don't know that Deere had their own private health insurance up until late of 2005, and they sold to United Healthcare, who's our healthcare provider now, and United Healthcare is a whole other story. But for like 500 million shares of stock, I mean, they're heavily vested, and I think that number's inflated, and I can guarantee you, if you looked at my W-2, you're not going to see $60,000 on there. It's going to be substantially less.
And also, right now, Deere has salaried employers trying to do basically machinery jobs, salaried employers that are not trained to do those jobs. And somebody told me yesterday that I guess on the first day or so of that, a salaried employer drove a machine into I don't remember what he drove it into, but basically Deere, maybe they don't realize that oh, shit, these are highly skilled workers who, if we're not paying them what they should be make, we're not going to be as productive.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to be a fly on the wall in there and see what was going on. I mean, look, they're not capable of doing any production. I mean, you have to laser the steel, you have to put it through a brake press and bend it. It has to be welded, it has to be assembled, it has to be painted, packed out and shipped. They're just not capable of it. I would imagine, and I don't know this for a fact, but the few salaried employees that they do have in there are probably picking repair parts or maybe doing some minor rework. But again, they're not capable of producing really anything. So,
Colin, by the way, I think we should move the camera over here so you get more of his face. Can you kind of talk also about the community? Because at the rally yesterday in Waterloo, there was a lot of talk about how the community has had to step in and help workers, not even just during the strike, but just in general, because workers aren't making what they should make, or benefits have been cut in certain areas. So it's had to be a community pitching in to basically pick up the slack, or workers have to work 3 Saturdays out of the weekend. So community members babysitting. Can you kind of talk about here? You guys have had to support each other even before the strike to make up for what you're not getting.
Yeah, I mean, so part of UAW Local 74 that we've tried to do is be a big part of our community. And helping and supporting and doing different causes. We do a free Christmas dinner every year. So last year we served about 1,500 Christmas meals to people who are needy, elderly, and we get donations from the community. And the reason why we do this, one, it's the right thing to do. And two, hey, someday we might be striking. Today's the day, and we're going to need the support of our community. And on that note, I expected support from the community, but what we've received has been absolutely overwhelming. We've literally had so many donations pouring in. We've had money donations. We've set up an account at Fairway to supply our strike kitchen, so we make sure we have hot meals and hot food for our picketers. But really, it's been a community event, and you can see when people drive by and they honk in solidarity and wave or throw out solidarity fists. They might not work here, but they're encouraging us, and really the support of the community is behind us, and we feel really blessed and encouraged by that.
I kind of wanted to talk bigger picture than just John Deere, because you served in the Army, Desert Storm too, and I find it interesting when I talk to veterans, because a lot of times what they went in thinking that they were fighting for, and then they come back and either they find themselves screwed by the capitalist system or screwed by fill in the blank, or at Standing Rock, vets are watching protesters being shot at by police. Can you kind of talk about, you went in at a young age to the military. What has been that kind of because you've been politically active, political awakening for you? Because I'm pretty sure you bought into a lot of America's the greatest country on earth, wealthiest country on earth, but then you guys are begging for crumbs as workers.
Yeah, I mean, so I joined the Army when I was 17. I didn't go in for a lot of major patriotic reasons. I was young. I wanted some adventure. But I did. I bought into the story and, fighting for our freedom. But, as I get older and I look back and, I read some people like General Smedley Butler, who was, one time the most decorated Marine. And, when he got done at the end of his career, he said, look, basically I've been a henchman for, Wall Street. whether it's in South America, China. You can see it today. We have, basically wars for oil and different resources. And really who's benefiting from that? Right. Whose freedom are we fighting for?
Right. And also, I think Bernie talked about this a lot, but how are you free if you don't have health care? How are you free if you don't have basic protections? How are you free to live a happy life, fulfilled life, if, your retirement's getting cut, you have to work a full-time job plus Uber or whatever else is the case? I think the definition of freedom has kind of been bastardized in this country due to what the mythology of what this country has been.
Yeah, I mean, through the course of the history of mankind, there's always been a ruling class. There's always been a subject class. It's morphed, whether you're talking about, feudal slaves and lords in Europe or what have you. The way we have it now is it's been corporate American takeover of our legislation, our courts, different things. And, really what freedom do you have when you're strapped to a job and you maybe need to work 20 hours overtime a week to make a go with your bills? And, I come from the camp where I believe that everybody deserves, a roof over their head, hot food, and health care. So, to borrow from an old cliche, when we all do better, we all do better.
This, we were talking the other day, you said, there's a bit of a awakening or a reemergence of labor in this country. And I think, a lot of people over the last couple of years have been really caught up in the political system in a good way. There's a lot of young people that were never politically active, came in Bernie's campaigns in 2016. A lot of older people who were kind of jaded, who Bernie might have given hope again. Not everybody was Bernie. Some people were for candidates that I think are little shits, but still got involved. But I think people are starting to realize that the corruption in this country, not that you shouldn't support a candidate if they have good policies and you think they're going to fight, but that the electoral system is not going to save us alone, and are starting to realize that, no, like, our main weapon is us, our work, our leverage, our wallets. I mean, we don't have a general strike, but we've had some, bank divestments, stuff like that. Can you kind of talk about, I mean, this has really been a domino effect. It's not just John Deere, it's everywhere. And there's a lot of things that are just brewing now with votes to authorize the strike, workers quitting, that kind of thing. Why do you think all of a sudden we've reached this tipping point, and how does it get bigger in terms of bringing people in that maybe they're not actually striking, but they could get involved in some form of protest?
I think for the most part, people are getting more informed, and through social media, through, people like you that are spreading the word with a little bit of honesty. There's a lot to say about it, but, and again, media tries to paint everybody in two different camps, a blue camp and a red camp. And, but people are starting to get it. Just because you have a D by your name doesn't necessarily mean you're going to stick up for workers. I mean, we can look now and see what's happening. Dems have the trifecta in Washington, D.C. And, where are we going? We still have a minimum wage that's been the same since 2009 as inflation creeps up every year. Rising healthcare costs, housing costs. We have a right to work law. It's been on the books for a long time. Why aren't we repealing that? And again, Joe Biden, where are you at? You argued to be self-proclaimed the most pro-union president in history, and we're hearing nothing from him. So,
a lot of people look at it, and it's really the same exact cycle over and over. I mean, Obama won, promising to part the seas. I mean, I think a lot of people got hoodwinked by Obama. I sure did when I was younger. And he comes in, and it's like Democrats have complete control, and they basically negotiate against themselves, in my view, because their donors will only allow them to go so far in actual economic anything. I mean, Obamacare, which was marketed as, a revolutionary transformation, was really just kind of a favor to insurance companies. And then obviously we could get into why Trump won, but he wins. And Democrats essentially just run on, anybody but Trump. Yep. And they get in, but they're basically just doing the same thing they did under Obama, which is negotiating down and down and down. And what I don't understand is I guess they think they have to keep the money coming from donors. But if Biden actually publicly came out there supporting, like very strongly supporting, not these top neutral statements of they have a right to strike, very strongly supporting you guys, very strongly condemning the corporation's greed in terms of the political negotiations right now. I don't know, he's the president. He could pretty much shame mansions, cinema, whatever. I mean, Democrats would win in a goddamn landslide, even in places like this. Maybe it's more culturally conservative, but on economic matters, as far as I've seen, a lot of ruby red Republicans want a lot of the policies we're talking about, but they don't do that. I know you were active for Bernie. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that no matter what side of the aisle you're on, both of them, it's about a preservation of power. It's about who's filling your coffer, who your benefactors are, who's writing your checks. And that really prevails over like the will of the people. Whether you're talking about Obama, whether you're talking about Trump or Biden, what sells to the American people is a populist message, right? Give it back to the people. And like you, I fell for a political fraud named Barack Obama. But, as soon as he started appointing his cabinet, in the first few weeks, people off Wall Street, and, I was like, I think we got bamboozled here, and we absolutely did.
Actually, it's funny you say that because, when WikiLeaks came out with those emails in 2016, they made it seem like it was, treason, whatever, Hillary Clinton's emails. In those emails, there was an email from Michael Froman, who was a bigwig at Citigroup, basically giving the list of who Obama should appoint to his cabinet. Yep. And he literally appointed every single one that this Citigroup executive suggested he appoint.
Yeah, it's your classic pay-to-play politics, right? And, and I think people expect and demand more. And we encourage anybody to come down. We take support from anybody, but we ask any candidate or current elected leader or official to come down here, talk to the people, really get a sense, to take it back, and just don't make it a photo op. But again, we do appreciate any support we get from anybody, and welcome anybody from any party, actually. So,
kind of talk about, it's early days. This is, I think, day 11 of the strike. Can you kind of talk about, we came here Thursday, and even with maybe like 20 people out, the energy is just contagious. People are rowdy in a good way. You got people all over the place, the various picket lines we've gone, cars honking. It's very, very few cars drive by without honking. It seems like there's something spreading in a good way, not just with John Deere, but in America. I don't really know how to label it, but could you kind of talk about what it's been like among workers, among the community? Do you think it's kind of like the pot tipping over?
Yeah, when you see people drive by or they bring donations in here because they're standing with us. They work maybe a crappy job too, don't feel like they're getting paid enough. So, as we stand here and, we're fighting back, we're going on strike. But, look, this was a long time coming. This has been, probably about 23, 24 years in the making. And, the conditions have finally lined up where we can do it. We see Deere, making record profits. Everybody sees that. They know that. We know that there's a labor shortage because, workers are expecting more. They're tired of working for peanuts. They don't want to expose themselves, to different, maybe perhaps, COVID or whatever. And really it's about, appreciating workers. And I think that's why it's really resonated with the community and why we've got so much support. And, UAW John Deere workers are, glad to be part of that spearhead.
Speaking of, smash that like button, share this live stream, YouTube, as always. likes to hide us. We have 121,000 subscribers. We're lucky if we break 200 live viewers. Thank God Twitter. These clips are getting around. But share this, smash the like button, all that. Super chats are welcome. Kind of pricey to report on the ground, I could tell you. Flights, hotels, rent-a-cars. I'll get to that later. But I kind of wanted to pivot a little bit because, you know, we live in a consumer society, you know, those suburban housewives and men who get their yoga mats from Amazon in 2 hours or whatever it is. Not that they're bad people, but we just kind of have become numb to like, how does it get there in 2 hours, right? We were driving through Iowa. It's John Deere wherever you look on the side on farms. And I think people have kind of forgotten, maybe they've just, with technology, they think these things are easy to produce. Delivery is easy to produce, all that. Can you kind of talk about, I mean, this is not an office job. I mean, marriages have suffered from people working 3 Saturdays out of a month. I've talked to people at other places, their marriages broke up, bodies break down. It's not like these kind of jobs are more than just, you know, your 9 to 5. You're putting a lot into it.
Yeah, I mean, as much as manufacturing has suffered, you know, since the Bush-Clinton era, when Clinton promised that he was going to transform us into a high-tech informational job, but there's still manufacturing jobs here. It's a hot, dirty factory. You go in there, depending on your job, but it's work, right? And like with anything, a piece of machinery, you do things repetitive, your body breaks down. It's become a fight to get people on long-term disability. It really has. I dealt with that a lot. They've changed the workers' comp laws here in Iowa to make it a lot more restrictive. And, one of the main people pushing that drive was John Deere. In fact, you can look when the governor signed that bill into law. There was John Deere executives behind him, as he signed it. So, that's... since the early 70s, it has been a war on workers. And, we can see that with Reagan, air traffic controllers in the 80s. And, I think it's finally people are starting to catch on and ready to, make a change and, do these strikes and, demand more from employers and not settling for less. And I really feel that the tentative agreement that was brought back to us to vote on October 4th, which 9 out of 10 people rejected, it sent a very clear message to Deere. It sent a very clear message to our international that this ain't going to cut it anymore. We know the deck's stacked in our favor, and we're ready to set out for a while. Let's see how long can they not produce and how long can we be on the streets. The important thing also is that, it's a mutual thing, right? They depend on us for labor, and we depend on them for, our wages and our benefits. But I think with their initial offer that they came back with and the tentative agreement, it just really shows how out of touch, how arrogant and audacious that they are. And it's, very classist as well. How can you justify giving your CEO a 160% raise and you're going to give your workers 11% raise over 6 years that, with any luck, will outpace inflation? So,
well, the media will never say this. I will. It's goddamn theft. They're stealing from you. There's no world. This guy could be the smartest man on earth, John May, during a pandemic where you guys are risking your lives. He's getting monopoly money as a raise. That is insane. And it's not just him. Bezos, the Waltons, you name it. The Democratic Party donors, the Republican Party donors, they're stealing. I'm not against the CEO doing well. I'm sure he worked hard to get to where he is. But, who can sell a couple dollars extra over 5-6 years? By the way, let's screw the new hires out of retirement. It's theft. And I think that's really what's the story of this country since the 1970s is there's been a bank robbery. Most journalists aren't allowed to say that, but I don't give a shit. And the heist has been against you.
Yeah, absolutely. The heist has been against the workers. So, if we're going to, really take an honest examination of this, we have to realize that they do not build products unless we go in there and build them. And, it's not an information. You talked about earlier about Amazon, what do we sacrifice for our own convenience? When we buy our products, and the sense of consumerism. But we need agriculture implements, and of course people need food to eat. And we build that equipment. That wealth was created on our backs, and we want something fair. We want equity. And I think that's really what this whole strike and this resurgence in the labor movement is about.
Let me ask you broader than just John Deere. You and I were talking before we went live. To me, politics is politics. I'm not saying completely give up on the electoral system. I think if you have a good candidate near you and you think they'll fight and they're not taking blood money, support them if you want. But to me, the only way you're going to get structural change in this country is not just protests with your feet, but protests with your wallet, which is obviously, a strike is basically that. But there's a lot of people, whether they're progressive or just the majority voter in this country, which is the non-voter, who just think this is all corrupt. It's never going to change. Why bother? Blah, 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 blah. And that's a powerful, powerful form of, that's honestly where the capitalist system wants you mentally. So they don't have to go up against the fight. What do you think in terms of, can these strikes, I'm not talking, there's going to be a general strike tomorrow, but can John Deere, Kellogg's, Nabisco, Frito-Lay, all of them, and there's going to be more, can this start something more, like broader than just these companies and these workers striking?
Yeah, I think we're sowing the seeds for that right now. And when you said that, people they're disgusted, they're disengaged, they're disenfranchised with the political system. You have political candidates that make all these promises when they're campaigning, and as soon as they get in the office, they're only answering to their wealthy benefactors, and it's pretty evident. Re-election time comes around, so it's cyclical. So I think people are starting to wake up to that fact, and demanding more. And when people see like striking workers out here, we're manning these gates 24/7, rain, shine, and see, there you go, another honk. And I think it's resonating with people, and we hope it's something that can be built upon and advance workers.
Not that what's going on in D.C. is a direct line to John Deere, but I think what's going on, Biden ran on Build Back Better, which is a whole, whatever that means. And he won. A paper bag might have beat Trump this time. And he ran that, Wall Street did not build America. Labor did. A lot of kind of signaling that I'm a labor guy. But since he's been in there, other than the original COVID relief, which to me was the bare minimum you could do during a pandemic, this deal that has some protections in it, the $3.5 trillion deal, is basically being stripped down to next to nothing. I just read that instead of expanding Medicare with dental and vision and hearing, they're going to give an $800 voucher for dental, which will cover half a tooth. I get a root canal. It was like $4,000 or $5,000 with the X-rays, multiple teeth. But we keep hearing this Fed, Democrats and Republicans, that something's better than nothing, right? Something's better than nothing, and we've heard that for years. And to me, that's neoliberalism, and in a way, that's what workers have been fed too. It's better than nothing, right? Can you kind of talk about this mentality of just take what you could get? And why do we have that? Why are we being fed that if we got $8 trillion over the next 10 years for the military? Nobody blinks an eye.
Yeah, once again, we go back to money and politics, right? So when you have, these legislators running for, office, and some of their sycophants to the for-profit healthcare industry, insurance industry, and big pharma, that's what you end up with. And I think once, and it's hard too. There's not always a good candidate to pick, and it's very seldom that you get someone that's not taking money from special interest and just running on, the will of the people and for basic human prosperity.
Yeah. And before I bring in some of your other compatriots here, where do you think this is going? You can't predict when it's going to end, but obviously there's been a lot of cases where a strike starts, there's a lot of rah-rah and then sometimes leaderships at various unions kind of break and accept maybe a little better, but not at all what really the workers should get. Are you to date happy with kind of leadership here? Obviously, you might not know the ins and outs of current negotiations, but do you see this potentially you guys holding out for a while into colder weather?
I mean, we're prepared for anything. We're ready for cold weather. We're ready for it to rain. Ready for the wind to blow. I can't speak to what's going on in negotiations because they keep it very hush-hush. I mean, I know a lot of other unions give their membership, daily updates. Not so the case here. And if they want to keep it privacy, bargaining in good faith, that's good. Like I mentioned earlier, 9 out of 10 workers rejected this tentative agreement they brought back to us. So they know we're not playing around. They know that we're not wanting to just shift the same predetermined pile of money around, blend it and then bring it back to us. What we're asking for is a bigger pot of money. We want a bigger pie to slice up, and we feel that as labor, as workers, that we deserve that.
And I should say also, whatever you want to say, because I know you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you, but people should know there's also a parallel thing going on where the UAW is voting whether to basically change the system. It's kind of complicated, but basically your leadership is delegates. It's almost like a convention. But you guys are right now sending in ballots whether to change that to members vote directly for union leaders.
Yeah, so how we democratically choose our international executive board, and those are the guys with the steering wheel that control the UAW. We have every 4 years we have a constitutional convention, and they make a slate called the Administration Caucus. And basically, if you're a delegate elected to go to this convention who elects the international executive board, it's very suppressive. They'll bring you into a room. And basically, if you don't agree to go with their slate, they'll tell you before the meeting even starts to go ahead and stand up and walk out. If you go into the convention yourself and you speak against the administration caucus or not what the line that they want to promote, they will literally drown you out with noisemakers and boo you. It's very suppressive and not a good example of democracy. One thing I'm very proud of here at our local is we do have a very good democratic process. There's no money in the politics. You literally have to walk by a voting box when you come into work. So we are proud of that. I would like to give a shout out to a group that I'm with called United Auto Workers for Democracy. And we're one of the entity, the caucus, pushing for this reformation of our international to stop 70 years of corruption. If you've been paying attention in the news, you've seen, I think, like 15 federal indictments, 2 past former UAW International presidents, Dennis Williams, Gary Jones, have got indicted, several regional directors. But it's become this, bed of corruption, and it's the way the system works. And crony unionism. And even in 2015, our chief negotiator was Norwood Jewell, who was indicted on his dealings with Fiat Chrysler. There's no evidence to suggest that that our bargaining process in that same year, 2015, was not clean. However, it begs the question. So we got RICO'd, federal oversight, just like the Teamsters did, and we hope that will help us rebuild our union. As you mentioned, we're going to have a referendum vote set up by the federal monitor, federal court appointed federal monitor, Fred Gabronsky, I believe is his name, from a law firm out east. And they were the oversight on all this, and we're going to have a referendum vote coming up. It's a mail-in ballot. Basically, anybody that can vote on a constitutional delegate to the convention. If you're a dues-paying member or a dues-paying retiree, you can vote. Whether we keep our present delegate system the way we have now, or do we do a direct membership voting, which is one member, one vote. You mean democracy? I mean democracy. Can be democracy, but let's be clear about something here. We don't want it to be a system of political bribery like our political system. We want something clean. We want it to be only members who can donate to campaigns. Obviously, look, if Jimmy's running for president in GMC, I don't know Jimmy. You know what I mean? So there's going to have to be some campaigning. There's going to have to rules, and we want clean money from members, and no outside influences, affecting our elections.
And last question for you. We talked a little bit about the media, but to me, one of the major reasons you have this corrupt status quo is because we have a media that props it up. Yep. I mean, the media nationally, forget it. It's just like Sports Center for politics. It's just like a back and forth of Team Blue, Team Red. They don't really ever actually investigate corporations. They don't actually. They just kind of have normalized the fact that, like, let's talk Mansion and Cinema right now. They just report it as if it's not abnormal that, oh, yeah, they're taking money from all these companies, so that's why they're screwing you. On the local level, it's here and there. You got good outlets who, give you a voice at least. But overall, local outlets, in my experience, particularly covering the water crisis in Flint, most of them are just tuned out. They're very disconnected from the communities they cover. They're not even allowed to rock the boat by their news directors. Can you kind of talk about, do you think the media is doing enough? Because to me, the lead story in America right now is these worker strikes. Yeah, we're in a pandemic still, but I mean, I don't know anything bigger than 10,000 workers striking all over. Amazon workers are about to file for a union vote election. But it's not being covered to that magnitude that I could tell. Shout out, Jonah Furman has been covering it really well from Labor Notes. More Perfect Union was here. Other than that, I don't really know many national outlets that are on the ground extensively. What's the role of media here in terms of actually, I mean, you got a worker revolt basically, yep. And it's being buried in many ways.
Actually, I've been kind of pleasantly surprised on, the local media here in town's always been very good to us and covers, events that we invite them to. And, obviously this is a big story, not only locally, but on a national level. Yeah, and you're right. You touched on Jonah Furman. From the onset, he's been one of our, our biggest voices out there, getting our message out, talking to the press, because, nobody else will. And on that note, I'm not supposed to be talking to the media. That's the directive that we got from International. Look, I have constitutional rights, and I plan on exercising them, and so I'll leave it there. And we've had, a few, reporter named Tyler Jett from Des Moines Register, which is heavily syndicated, outlet. He's been very fair to us, and we've had it's been nice. Even on some of the national media, they don't really cover it much, but they have at least picked it up. And we want, the main thing we want to know is, like, especially down here, we've been trying to run a clean picket line, and we don't want to give the message that we're an angry mob of workers. That really, this is a family event. You can come down here. You can see people bring their kids or grandkids or dogs, and it's about workers in a community fighting back, and that community just happens to be dispersed all over Iowa, Illinois, and parts of Kansas, and throughout the Midwest. So,
what do you recommend? How do you recommend to people watching? Because we got people from around the world actually that watch. Whatever, maybe their company's too small, and they only have a couple. It's a mom and pop shop, but how should people get involved, whether it's striking, whether it's organizing a union, whether it's protesting at a bank? How should people get involved? Because many people kind of think, they're supporting you, they'll do the hashtag, but they don't really know what to do beyond that.
That's a very good question, Jordan. Support striking workers is one thing you can do. Try to organize your workplace, which is very hard to do. I mean, you can see what happened in Amazon. UAW themselves, we had a big, down in Alabama for the Mississippi for the Nissan plant. And, company propaganda machines out in full blast. It's very hard to organize, especially bigger employees. I'd love to see Amazon. Those workers deserve to have a union. They deserve a collective bargaining process. But again, get involved in organizing efforts. Pay attention to who you're voting for, and support strikes and things of that nature.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you. If anybody else wants to talk, bring them over. I'm going to just keep going until we get more people. So smash that like button, share this live stream. More people that press the like button, the more people that will see this live stream. We're doing this on a rainy day. It's raining outside, but we want to continue to give more voice to these workers. That was Chris Larson, who used to be the president of the local UAW here, Local 74 in Ottumwa. If you don't know Ottumwa, it's southeast portion of Iowa. About 24,000 people live here. I believe it's fairly close to Missouri in terms of the border. There he is.
What's that?
The man, the myth. Sit down.
The man, the myth.
So I want to introduce, and by the way, we'll talk about it later, but we're going to need your support to stay out on the road. It's expensive. Flights, hotel, rent a car. So if you're not a member yet, StatusCoup.com/fall. Sign up as a member today. If you sign up actually through Thanksgiving, you get a free piece of Status Coup swag. So you see how there you go.
Right? If you're middle class, give to these guys. They're fighting for all of us. So.
Thank you. So before our camera died the other day, because you and I were talking, I know your wife was very distraught. She was watching you, and our camera died, so she couldn't hear you anymore. But you and I were talking, and you were basically talking about that a major issue, not only with this company, these strikes, is the fact that, I mean, the American dream was supposed to have like a vacation from time to time,
Sure.
Be able to buy a car, you know.
You go to work 40 hours a week, and at some point in time in the summer, you get to enjoy some time with your family, the people that you're working for, right? And you know, that's pretty much a gone deal, because it's the vacation time's dictated by companies. Maybe you don't make enough money that a decent or elaborate vacation is even a possibility, right. You know. So yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer that at some point in time, it has become, through corporate unionization, if you want to call it that we're just supposed to be happy to have a job, and it's accepted that mom and dad both got to go to work 40 hours a week in order to provide for the family, right? Well, in that, I know you and I were talking that. You know, they pass each other in the halls. We wonder even how they're able to make a baby. You know, no time to see each other. You know, and then and the frustrations that come with just being worn out at the end of a day and whatnot, they take their toll on a marriage. They take their toll on a family, and we just keep seeming to buy the narrative that that's just accepted. I was fortunate to grow up at a time when my mom stayed at home. Once we started going to school, my mom went to beauty school and became a hairdresser, opened up a business in the house. So I was always fortunate to come home and my mom was there. My dad worked for the city here in Ottumwa as an electrician. Was afforded a decent vacation time. You know, at the end of the day, I didn't feel like I was ever truly on my own. I had somebody there that was overseeing, whether it was my mom or when my dad got off. Back then, the John Deere whistle used to blow at noon and 3:30. Well, I knew at noon Dad was coming home for lunch, and I knew at 3:30 he's coming home from work. And you could hear that whistle throughout this whole town. I mean, there wasn't any area within the city limits that you didn't hear that. And it told the time. Everybody knew what it represented. It meant people were getting off work, and it meant people were going to work. And over the years, having coached Little League in this town for 18 years, when I was a kid, you might have one or two kids on your ball team that came from a split home. When I started coaching, you might have one or two kids on your team that didn't come from a split home. And so when I would call a practice or the weather being inclement and we had to cancel a game, I had twice as many people to call because I had to call Mom and I had to call Dad. And I believe a lot of that revolves around the fact that Mom and Dad, in order to have a life for their kids, they both have to work. And, you know, I've felt for a long time that we need the corporations, United Corporations of America, which I truly believe that is where we're at.
You could pretend it was your idea.
I remember you saying it, and it made total sense to me. But the narrative is that that's just the way of the land, and what we've lost in that is the fabric of the family, and the fact that there's a sense of security for the kids when they come home. I mean, we've watched all these school shootings over the years and different stuff, and people, kids that are misguided or misled, or maybe there's nobody there for them. And part of that is because somebody's out working to provide for them financially, but not emotionally.
Well, also, not to mention, back in the day, parents could afford to send their kids to college, right? You didn't have kids graduating a 4-year degree or a master's, $250,000 in debt, which basically destroys their life. How the hell are they supposed to build anything if they have shackles? Right. But how can parents afford those things, whether it's college or other things for their kids, if they got to work a full-time job, in a lot of cases drive an Uber on the side, work 3 Saturdays? Right. And when you were saying all this, it struck me because Michael Moore did a documentary a couple years ago. I think it was Where to Invade Next. And he just went country to country showing how they are far less wealthy than us, but their citizens get way more. Like Italy, you were talking about the bell went out at noon and dad came home for lunch. Italy, they go home for like 2 hours during the workday for family lunch. Other countries that, again, far less wealthy than us, they have pregnant women in Germany, I think, paid. You could be off for a year after you give birth or something close to that. So to me, where's the disconnect? If we have the most money in this country, yet other countries, their citizens are getting more, to me, that's where the wage theft comes in.
So for me, what you just said struck a bell. So what is wealth? Is wealth just a dollar sign? Or is wealth, I have a secure family? I have a family that knows they're loved. I think it's tough to be an evil person if you know love, right? And so when we're looking at wealth, if we're just putting a dollar sign on it, then we're the fools, ultimately, right? To me, if we don't hold in high value the sanctity of the family and making sure that our kids understand and appreciate empathy, sympathy, looking out for others and having it, that's what this country was founded on, to me. Maybe not founded on, but what it became, certainly in the World War II era, right? People had each other's backs. We saw it 9/11, right? We saw this country stand together for a common cause. And now we're in a time where we're so divided, and I saw that coming even before the 2016 election. I knew that, and I honestly, to be honest, I don't believe it would have mattered if Hillary had won or Trump. We just seen where we're at today.
Well, when you basically have a 40-year controlled demolition of the working class, because that's what it is. I mean, this is a demolition of working people. White, black. Let's be honest, black people never even got fully to be in the middle class in America. But when you have a 40-year controlled demolition led by corporations, led by the media that props up the corporations, that bubble's going to pop at some point. And I even said, I covered 2016, and a lot of people thought, oh, Trump supporters, they're all racist. There was a lot of that. But I met a lot of Trump supporters that, frankly, talking to them was not so different than talking to Bernie supporters.
I absolutely agree.
They may be culturally conservative, but like economically, they were afraid to lose their jobs in their plant. They used to be able to work one job, got paid decent, benefits, they could go on vacation. I spoke with many people that were now working 3 jobs, including driving Ubers, Lyft. So, yeah, you're probably going to get really, really fucking pissed off at that, and you're probably going to be fairly open to a different voice, whether that voice is full of it or not.
Well, and so that was one of the things that I felt like the Bernie supporters and the Trump supporters shared is they were tired of, no play on words here, but the status quo, right? That they were tired of politicians selling them on deals. And with Trump, he was a guy that talked unintelligently in a way that made you feel like he was speaking from you. I mean, most of us aren't highly educated, and clearly Donald Trump didn't speak up here. Bernie was pretty simple in his speech, and I always felt like those two groups clearly felt a lot of frustration out of what they're getting out of this country and the representation that they get, whether it be through a president or through senators and congresspeople, and that ultimately, if you could bring those two groups together without the word socialism, that really what they were looking for was something more towards Bernie, but they appreciated the voice of Donald Trump. And that he didn't try and doctor things up or seem like he was highly sophisticated. And in the whole scheme of things, Donald Trump is not a whole lot different than the corporations we're battling. But I don't think the American people...
Donald Trump is the corporation.
Right. So, I mean, but people listened to his narrative and bought into that. With Bernie Sanders, the narrative, if they'd done their homework, you could go back to the 90s, and the only difference was Bernie was talking about millions, and now we're talking about billions and trillions, and the single most thing that has to happen is get money out of the politics. If you look out in, I believe it was Montana, I watched a documentary on where they attacked a guy that was a pretty salt of the earth guy, but he was basically attacked by a pack. And, when the narrative gets out there, people don't always do the research to find out whether that's true or not. And I think years ago, there was a guy, maybe it was governor or something from Montana, that had found his way into the Senate. And that's when they created a certain law to make sure that didn't happen again. Well, unfortunately, the big money has gotten behind a lot of the lobbying and legislation to make it to where that's where we're at now across the country.
Well, I also think, and this is the media too, and it goes into what you guys are experiencing during this strike. The media has normalized bribery.
Sure.
I mean, look at what's going on right now. We thought, originally this deal in D.C. was going to be $3.5 trillion. It's going to have a lot of good things in it. But two people, one of them who literally owns a coal company and is making, I think the Intercept reported, he's making $500,000 a year just from the coal company, more than he makes as a senator.
Right.
Plus stock options, he's made millions over 10 years. Yeah, maybe he has a conflict of interest in being a senator that's going to decide on legislation to save the planet. Then you have this Sinema who, while this all is going on, is literally doing fundraisers in Europe. She went to Paris for a fundraiser. She's taking money from the pharmaceutical companies that don't want, I don't know how old you are, they don't want you to have free dental when you hit Medicare, free vision, free hearing, paid family leave. They don't want these things. And the media has basically framed it as, oh, these people are just centrists. They're more moderate. No, they're corrupt. It's not just Democrats, the Republicans too.
Absolutely.
But a lot of people don't truly, I think they woke up a little bit to when Bernie was saying it, but a lot of people don't realize they just have, I know older people in my life that, that's politics. Well, no, that shouldn't be politics because we shouldn't have a system where we should have a system of representation. Absolutely. Where you if the majority of the people in Ottumwa or wherever want something, you're there to represent their will, but that's not what's happening.
No. You're represented by whoever's funding your campaign, and once you're elected, right, you're at the mercy of that campaign. One of the things I appreciated most about Bernie, the first time I saw him was in July of 2015 at Valley West High School up in Des Moines. And prior to our contract in 2015, I had started a movement here in Ottumwa that we ended up taking to Waterloo and some of the other locals. And we voted that contract down. But I had seen somebody put a meme up with a quote of Bernie's, and I can't even remember what it was at the time. And I just remember thinking, that's the kind of guy we need. That's the kind of person that's looking out for the American people. And when the opportunity came to go hear him speak, I'll never forget, he come out, and the first thing he said, he says, here's what we're going to do. All right?
You got the
You
got the Jewish Brooklyn accent.
I love the guy, man. He's one of my heroes. He says, here's what we're going to do. We're going to run a campaign a little bit different than what you've seen before. We're going to tell the truth. You know, the top 1% is getting all the money over the bottom 90%, right? So, and I believe that's true. The guy has put himself on the line, because I'm sure the left and the right are against him. That's why what happened with Mr. Biden getting in office, that's why that happened. Because
right here in the great state of Iowa, it seems like he won the caucus, if you ask me, but through a funky app and all this shit, somehow they declared it for the other guy.
I was a caucus captain for Bernie both times. They throw the word socialism out. I'll never forget it. In 2016, I was arguing for Bernie with the Hillary supporters, and they said, you don't understand. They'll put a hammer and a sickle in his hand the minute he gets the nomination. Well, if you educate people on the difference between democratic socialism and socialism, right, then you understand. I mean, the fact that we're in a union is a form of democratic socialism. Right? We all pay our fair share based on our average earnings, two and a half hours a month. And we all get the same benefits. Now, not everybody has 10 kids. Some people have no kids. Some people have no wife. Right? But at the end of the day, you're entitled to those benefits based on the dues that you pay. And it's no different than the streets that we use. You've got corporations like Amazon, Walmart, Elon Musk and his cars and all this stuff uses our highways, and they pay nothing in taxes. They pay nothing to improve those roads that they use. But yet we have people that still say, well, I'm not for socialism. Oh, I'm not for this. How can you be in a union and not recognize democratic socialism as a benefit? And why not have it for the entire country? Why should we not? Why in this country, the richest country in the world, should a person have to bargain to get health insurance and be at the mercy? Everybody's worried about the government running our health care. Well, what you have right now is a for-profit insurance company running your health care. And I've had more than one instance where I've went to a doctor that's in the plan, his facility's in the plan. He runs a test that United Healthcare does not deem AMA or whatever, does not deem that as a viable test, and I end up paying for it out of pocket, even though I have insurance that the company pays for, right? They brag about that. Ultimately, we've got somebody that's about money running our health care, that's deciding what is best for us. So I guess in my opinion, I'm willing to spin it. I'm willing to throw the dice on, let the government run, let me go anywhere I want, to whatever doctor I want. And I hope they're treated fairly and paid fairly. But at the end of the day, I don't want to be a slave to whatever insurance company dictates where I can and can't go.
Well, the term socialism, I think Bernie touched on this too. You know what else is socialism? John May making a 160% increase, sure, because that money's coming from you. That's right. Socialism is redistribution, right? Well, how the hell is he making all that money? It's coming from the bottom to him. Bernie called it corporate socialism. But I don't know. I've never heard that described on CNN. Yeah. I mean, where is Jeff Bezos? He's making, just through stock options, he was making, I think, $64,000 a minute. A minute. That is socialism. So socialism,
$300,000 while we're sitting here talking.
right? So socialism's not a bad thing apparently if it's for John Deere,
well, it's
Amazon,
rich,
Walmart.
right?
So I think, and by the way, socialism, communism, whatever. We don't need to get into the Cold War, but there's been a lot of fear mongering pushed by the media.
Sure.
During the Democratic primary, whatever. If you like Trump here or Bernie, it doesn't matter to me. But during the Democratic primary, we kept hearing Biden's the pragmatic choice. He's the one that could get it done. He's the one that could, work across the aisle, this and that. The man might as well be in fetal position right now. He can't get anything done. No. He's letting Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema hijack the whole, and I think he's doing it because he doesn't want to speak out against them because they share the same donors. But they said Bernie can't get anything done. Well, I don't know. Bernie's the one that got Amazon to pay $15.
I'll tell you what, Bernie's the guy that's pushing for this infrastructure bill. Bernie's the guy that's hell bent on 3.2 million or 3.2 trillion. Yes. What it's about is we go to work every day, the working class. We pay our fair share in taxes. What we want to see is our teachers paid properly. We want to see our firemen paid properly and well staffed. We want to see our police forces staffed and trained properly. The things that our taxes pay for, and Bernie never lied. Bernie said, "Listen, in order to get college tuition free, it's going to come from the speculators on Wall Street, right? That rape us daily. All we're going to do is make sure they pay taxes on what they get. What we're going to do with health care for all is we're going to make the rich pay their fair share. And my God, there's a ton of money. There's a ton of money there. If they just pay the same that us working folks are paying, right? I don't understand how people don't understand.
And I also think it's not even that far ago. 1950s, 60s, taxes were higher on wealthier people. You had strong labor unions. You did not have this spigot where money could just flood politics. I don't know. Wealthy people were pretty filthy rich then too. When the middle class or whatever's left of it. But when the middle class back then did well, CEOs did very well. And there was also more of, I think in the 1980s it changed. Maybe it was that movie, Greed is Good. But there was this mentality that started a couple decades ago of you go get yours. Yeah. Right? Does the community, don't worry about your neighbor, your coworker. You get yours. Survival of the fittest.
I'll tell you what I recall, and I don't know how old you are, but I'll be 51 next month. But I can remember in the 80s when the slogan became "Look out for number one." And I come from a strong union family, and I can remember an uncle that helped mold me, is a portion of who I am, that absolutely believed in buying American when Nikes were popular. And I can remember my aunt, because you have fads and whatnot, and he had two daughters, and she would go ahead and buy maybe things that weren't American, but it was hid from him. He was a NECA contractor, which is an electrical contractor that belongs to ultimately a union of contractors that only hire union workers. And he was a union worker prior to that. And but I solely remember hearing a lot as I was growing up between the ages of 10 and 20. Look out for number one. And the culture I was raised in as a kid, you looked out for your neighbor. I mean, if a storm's coming, they don't have a basement, come to our house. We got a basement, And when we got away from that, we divided ourselves. Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, it's just slowly grown that direction. You look at the 70s, they knew that 30% of the working class was unionized. Back in the day, a place like John Deere, thank you, sir. A place like John Deere, as you drive around this town and you get close to over where JBS is, and you get around here, you see a lot of small houses in large neighborhoods. Well, what those were was people that walked to work every day, because most times you only had one vehicle, and they left that with mom. So she could take back in the day, I mean, I haven't seen too many buses roll by here while we've been out here, but as a kid, you saw buses go by a lot. People use that transportation. It was about having a life for your family. You didn't have no big houses, right? But you could provide for your family. And most of those people walked to work. They were within proximity. So on the weekends when they weren't working, after they'd fought for 8-hour days, they were having barbecues. And they're talking, hey, we got to shove it to this company. You know, we'd talk about stuff. Well, a place like John Deere, we got people that live in Missouri. We got people that live up in Pella. We got people that live in Davis County. We got people that live in Monroe County, Mahaska County. So we're spread out. So when the weekend comes, we don't necessarily get together. That's why I say what John Deere has done by giving us a contract that was easily and overwhelmingly rejected, what they've done by forcing us to hit the strike lines is they've forced us to get together and discuss, right? And what we're finding out is we have a lot more similarities than we have differences. Right. And one of the things I'm most proud of that I've seen in the little over a week that we've been on strike is the solidarity and the coming together and the putting aside our personal differences for the sake of solidarity and for fighting for what we want. That's what I've seen that I'm most proud of with this. And I believe it's going to branch out. Hopefully that solidarity spreads to union and non-union, right? To where we're fighting. When we see JBS go on strike, we're there for them. You know what I mean? When we see a company that's wrongfully treating their people that are non-union, we're there for them. We go there and we say, hey, listen, unionize. And if you can't unionize, we'll stand with you out here and we'll quit buying that product. I mean, you look at all these ships and all this stuff that's sitting out there waiting to be unloaded. Two things I think that this country should have learned from the pandemic is, one, build it here, and you don't got to worry about what's happening in India. You don't got to worry about what cargo ships coming in. And number two, pay your people like you value them. Wow. And if you pay them like you value them, at least if they're walking into a factory wondering if they're gonna walk out and later find out they've got COVID or they've spread it to a loved one, at least at the end of the day, they were valued in the pay and benefits that they had. And we're not just machines. We're not just flesh and blood pieces of equipment.
Well, this was also kind of, shall we say, forgotten by the media. Why the hell do you think we had no masks or ventilators or equipment or PPE? Because we sold all our jobs to other countries. Right. Starting, by the way, it wasn't just Reagan. The Democrats, NAFTA. Absolutely. I mean, Vilsack, who's the agricultural sec now, he's been a TPP booster. Frankly, I covered Trump in 2016 on the road. They claimed it was Russia. It wasn't Russia. He had them when he kept bashing NAFTA. I could see it at these Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin. They were responding because he was speaking their language. When the Democratic Party was like, oh, globalization. Yeah, well, you can't be for globalization without a contingency plan for your workers and your communities. I have driven through ghost towns through the Midwest and deindustrialized America. Closed down factories, closed whole little shopping centers, boarded up, closed down YMCAs. I mean, Iowa too. And that's kind of just been, well, that's just the price of changing world. But the workers have been the ones to suffer in Iowa, in other states. And then because there's less options, they're forced to work for less wages, benefits being cut, this and that. But I'm seeing something different now, not just with John Deere and all those strikes that are going elsewhere. I think workers are realizing, well, they've been able to do that to us because we haven't fought back.
Because we allowed it, right? You know, it's really sad for me in this town to have grown up here. And if you drive around, used to be that we had just about as many churches as we had bars. I would say the churches are suffering, you know, and the idea has always been, you know, you try and give 10% to your church. Clearly, people don't have that expendable income. Another area that I've seen, we've got a couple different racetracks around here. We got Eldon, we got Bloomfield, we got Oski. As a kid, I had a cousin or an uncle that lived across the street that built a stock car every year. He worked at Deere. You'd go to Eldon on Saturday night or Bloomfield on Friday, Oskaloosa on Wednesday, and you'd see 30 cars in each class, right? You go there now, you won't see as many. The expendable income isn't there for a person to play around with, right? To get some enjoyment out of life that's aside from your work. Same thing with the churches. You don't have that expendable income to give to a church. I'm sure I'm not necessarily a churchgoer. I do believe in God, but you know, I imagine it's a pretty humbling feeling when they pass the plate to you and you know you can't put nothing on it, or you're taken away from your family because there just ain't enough to hand out. And you know, at the end of the day, it comes down to we're being manipulated through the media, through politics, to believe that, you know, we're just fortunate to have a job. Yeah. And those days are over. And I hope that's what this fight, and this is the message that we're sending.
And let me ask you just kind of a wrapping up question. I think there's a lot of people that watch, but whatever, maybe they only work at a company with like 5 to 10 people, or they're kind of just politically depressed. Maybe they were Bernie people, and now they're just like, right, it's all corrupt, it's all rigged. I'm not gonna bother. You know, or they support the workers striking. You know, they do the hashtag. They're watching, but they don't really know what more do they do. I think that this John Deere strike and all the other strikes are going could be the start of something much bigger in this country. Because I think, frankly, at a certain point, people have nothing left to lose. People have nothing left to lose. What should people watching or that are going to see this on social media, what should they do? Because a lot of people don't have hope anymore. They think we live in a two-party kind of corrupt system. They think, yeah, we could strike, but it's not going to fundamentally change how corrupt the country is. How should people take action themselves?
So the first thing I would say is ditch the idea that you've got to be left or right. And number two, use your voice. You know, what do you see and what do you believe? And then follow that. You know, at the end of the day, if we aren't awake yet, if you're in this country and you don't realize yet that we're being manipulated and owned, all of us, regardless of your color, your race, your sex, we are owned by the corporations. And they put a lot of money out there to make laws and whatnot that ultimately bind us to the plantation, if you will. And, you know, the thing is, when we stick together and we stand up together, we can change things. We're the majority. We've got them outnumbered. It's just we have to make that the new culture, right? Is that we deserve more, that our lives are just as valuable as Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or the Walton family or John May. I have zero problem with somebody that's in a position of authority getting there for a share, but that doesn't mean that I don't get mine, or that my brothers and sisters don't get theirs, or that working people across the land aren't, and I'm not going to call it entitled because they're earning it. You know, John Deere just came out and said, "Oh, we're gonna give you your insurance, right? and we're going to go ahead and pay the KIP bonus. And they put that out there publicly like they're doing us a favor. The insurance, sure, I can see where they could have cut that off. These KIP plans, at least at John Deere, that's money people earned. Years ago, that was piecework. That was something you got on your paycheck every week. And now it's drug out to where John Deere's allowed to use that money for 13 weeks before they pay you. And they make money on that money. And then having been in the position of the chairman, where I was defending grievances, on many occasions, they're blatantly stealing, in my opinion. Yeah, so I mean, you know, they offer up this incentive, and it's an incentive that's dictated by them. And ultimately, in a lot of cases, your downtime, which I can remember when I worked at the foundry in Fairfield, and it was still piecework, and that was back in the early 90s. Those molders got paid, in some cases, let's say $1.59 a mold. Well, when the sand didn't come, or their machine went down, they went over and hit a clock, and they went and sat in the office. And when everything got back up and running, they went back to piecework. And in the case of John Deere, there's no clock to go hit to get your 100% instead of your incentive, so that doesn't get applied to your incentive. What happens is that downtime gets applied, and you say, well, what the hell, we were down for 4 hours, and they go, oh, it's in the base. That's in this number that we apply to your incentive. Well, how can it be in the base? When you establish that base, did the line go down for 4 hours that day? Right? So it's all dictated by the company. And in a lot of cases, I've seen over the years, plans that the majority of the plans that would run well shortly after 97 and leading into even 09 and 15, about 15, you started seeing a lot of plans started tanking or failing. Or when they brought out a new plan, it was all the standards were established by somebody in India, you know, that said, well, this should take, where I can remember when I first started here, there'd be people out there with stopwatches. How long does it take, right? So they could establish a true standard. And I've seen that over the years, and I think that's why the plans are and nobody from the company side, they address it with what they call a FIP, which is they try and go in and attack it and fix it, basically. I can't remember what FIP stands for, but at the end of the day, these people come to work, and if they make less than 115, they make that. They don't make the incentive. Yeah. You know, so I don't know. It's it doesn't feel like an incentive plan if I was on the line. Fortunately, I'm in maintenance, and we don't have KIP, but certainly see all the people out there that do. And I've been where I had to defend that, and relied pretty heavy on my time study guys to help me with that, because I wasn't a KIP employee. I guarantee you, if I was, I'd know how it worked, and I'd be fighting pretty damn hard when they were hosing us.
And last question. Obviously, you don't have a crystal ball, but John Deere is a corporation, so they're not exactly going to wake up tomorrow and say, you know what, these workers deserve X amount. That's fair. You guys ready for the long haul? If that's what it's gonna take.
My mind's eye. I don't see this strike lasting anything less than a month. And in order for John Deere to truly fill it, I think we'll be out 3 months. Because you're right. I don't think John May or Brad Morris and the people that are on the bargaining committee are going to wake up and go, you know what, let's save face here, right? Gosh damn it, we owe these guys. You know, we've been doing pretty well for 24 years. Why don't we try treating our employees like we value them? Why don't we try giving them the benefits that they truly deserve instead of convincing them that they don't.
They're on pace for $6 billion this year.
And the thing is, in my almost 19 years I've been here, I've never heard of the company losing money, right? At the end of the day, I've said for a long time, I would love to see corporations, somebody in this country that has a wielding power, like John Deere, Cat, Case, Elon Musk, say, you know what, we're going to give treating people with dignity, and even though technology will take away some jobs, but we're going to value a person's time. And I would love to see them invest in the people in this country. Whether that'll ever happen, I don't know. Is it going to take getting money out of politics? I believe so. We got to get laws written to protect us. And that's not going to happen because we don't have that kind of money. We don't have the money to build a stock car, right? Or to have a hobby, let alone throw it to a senator or a congressman to get their attention. So I think the first step in changing things, one, is what we're doing. And then number two is who we elect. And finding people salt of the earth, and like Bernie's campaign, if it's $20 that we're able to afford, but that person's willing to not take the big money so that our voice is heard, you start getting more people in Congress and Senate like that, and we might be able to change things. But I don't think it's going to happen with the two-party system as it is right now.
Thank you very much, sir. Toby, what's your last name?
Appreciate it. Munley.
Toby Munley from Ottumwa.
Funley.
Toby Munley. So that is two workers from John Deere here in Ottumwa. One of them used to be the president of the local union here. It has been a rainy, on and off, storming. Right now it's not raining as bad, so that's good. This is our second time in Ottumwa. And honestly, different picket lines are different. Some places they don't really want to talk. Some places they're a lot, rowdier in a good way. And I would say here in Ottumwa, they're definitely in this for the long haul. You really can't see you don't really see many cars that go by without honking in support. So the community is supporting them. And like you said, I think today's day 11, so it's still technically fairly early into this, but this could go on a while. I mean, corporate America, obviously John Deere has been trying to get their salaried employees to fill these manufacturing jobs, and it's not going well. It's not going well. Let's put it that way. But it's really important, I think, to be out here to really actually hear from the workers. Sure, you could hear quotes here and there in the local media, but it's really important to sit down and have in-depth discussions with the workers, not just about John Deere, but just about 30, 40 years of just this neoliberal cesspool we've been living in, because this country is essentially a corrupt system of legalized bribery. And don't think that these workers, what they're fighting for, they wouldn't have to fight like this if the laws weren't rigged against them. They would not have to fight like this if John Deere and companies like it weren't buying our politicians. That's really what's going on. Just look at the media. All right, they'll cover it here and there. They're not going in depth on corruption, because who sponsors the media? Who advertises with the media? Amazon, John Deere, ExxonMobil. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So that's not a democracy. That is a corrupt oligarchy. And that's why we started Status Coup. We don't have a corporate parent telling us what to say. Thank God. And it's a lot harder, by the way, to do this way, independent. We don't have big funding from banks, fossil fuel companies, big pharma, real estate. ExxonMobil is not sponsoring us. Literally, you have Politico and Axios and these online sites. Their newsletters are sponsored by ExxonMobil or pharmaceutical companies. I mean, it doesn't really get more conflicting and corrupt as that. So if you've been enjoying this is day 4 or 5 we've been out here. We've been in Ottumwa and Davenport and Waterloo and East Moline. We were at that big rally in Waterloo yesterday. I think it was about 150, 200 people were there at the local UAW in Waterloo. We went to the picket lines after. Please support us. Please support us if you can. If you're not a Status Coup member, sign up today, statuscoup.com/fall. You hear another honk in support. StatusCoup.com/fall. If you sign up as a member through Thanksgiving, so all the way through Thanksgiving, if you sign up as a member before Thanksgiving, you'll get a free piece of Status Coup merchandise. So we got shirts, posters, I think a sweatshirt, and you could sign up for $5 a month. And it might not sound like much, but the more people that sign up, the more we could afford this. I mean, I just extended the rent-a-car by 2 days. Before I got here, it's another $350 just for 2 days of a rent-a-car. It's insane. Flights cost money. Hotels cost money. Food. We went to get lights and equipment. It's all expensive, which is part of why national and local media don't do much of this. They don't want to spend the money. It's a lot cheaper just to, put a Democrat and a Republican on screen and then fight for 5 minutes before a commercial. That's a lot cheaper than what we're doing. And they also don't want to do it because they're owned by corporations that don't want workers to be heard. That's another reason. So please support us, statuscoup.com/fall. I think since we've been on the ground, we've gotten, 15 or 16 new signups. We want to get a lot more new members while we're down here. Our hope is from Iowa to go to Buffalo. If you don't know, there's a mayor's race. November 2nd is the election. India Walton is running. She is a nurse. She's also a socialist. She beat the current Democratic mayor, who is corrupt. He is basically sold Buffalo to the real estate developers, like many Democratic politicians have done, called gentrification. Anyway, he lost. She beat him in the primary. And instead of going away, humbly and with a little dignity, he is now trying to win as a write-in candidate. And essentially, the media is all in for him, even though she beat him in the primary fairly. And the city council of Buffalo, Democrats, are now talking about, if she wins, getting rid of the mayor's position. How's that for democracy? Starbucks workers are also trying to unionize in Buffalo. So we want to go talk to workers at Starbucks. And there is a big hospital strike in Buffalo at Mercy Hospital, where 2,000 workers are striking. So tell you the truth, if we don't grow, we're not going there. So in addition to becoming a member, if you're already a member, please support us. You could donate for this trip. Got a couple nice donations yesterday, but we need more. StatusCoup.com/donate. That's StatusCoup.com/donate. Big donations we appreciate. Small donations help also. Any amount. I don't mean this arrogantly, but do you see anybody else doing what we're doing? Honestly, do you see corporate outlets doing what we're doing? No, you do not. Frankly, not a whole lot of independent outlets either that do what we do. And honestly, what we do is not rocket science. It's very simple. We care enough to show up. We care enough to give the microphone to people like Toby, who you will not hear on CNN. To give the microphone to people like Chris, who you're not going to hear on CNN. Yesterday, we heard amazing stories from community members in Waterloo, from striking workers. You're not going to hear from these people on the pages in the New York Times, on CNN, on MSNBC, on PBS. You're just not. It's not in their business plan to highlight what's really going on, or to call it what it is, which is corruption and theft. So please support us. Every new member counts. We really, really appreciate it. Obviously, we're struggling on YouTube. You could tell by the numbers. We have 121,000 subscribers. Somehow, we're lucky if we crack 300 live viewers. It's not because we're doing anything wrong. Obviously, YouTube's CEO has openly admitted that they are suppressing or hiding, shall we say, channels like this, and in favor propping up CNN and pumping your feed with corporate outlets. So any amount counts. StatusCoup.com/donate. Also, become a member, StatusCoup.com/fall. And also for members, we've been posting a lot of behind-the-scenes photos and videos. So once you sign up as a member, you could watch behind-the-scenes videos on our website. So that's StatusCoup.com. And on our website, just hover over Become a Member, and you'll see member content. So if you're a member, you just go to our website, member content. Is that right?
The new website.
Yeah, yeah. The new website, what?
The new website has the exact same.
Yeah. So the new website, hover over Become a Member, and if you're already a member, you'll see member content. There's the photos, the videos. We actually have more that we haven't uploaded, behind-the-scenes videos we've been taking. So that's all I got. Would it be possible to walk outside for a minute to show people? So before we go, let's show you the picket line outside. Smaller because it's bad weather, but still going. Woo! So as you can see, they're still out here, even in the rain. It's windy, it's cold. Let me get in here. Woo! So got the flag here. You got the barrel. They're trying to get the fire going because it's hot. It is definitely cold out here. If you can tell, the rain, the wind, but people are still out here. So that shows you their dedication. And they're going to stay out here. As Toby said, it could take a while.
We're in it to win it, brother.
As he says, they're in it to win it. Any parting words, folks, before we go?
UAW Local 74 strong, brother.
UAW
All
Local
the way.
74 strong. So we're going to wrap up. By the way, it was pouring out earlier, but they were still out here, like pouring. But we're going to get going. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Again, support us. Status Coup, StatusCoup.com/fall. StatusCoup.com/fall. We're going to go before our equipment gets ruined. Peace.